Good morning, dear participants of the Second International Congress on Mental Health in Moscow. My name is Ната Менабде. I am Executive Director of the World Health Organization's office in New York at the United Nations. I had a great intention to join you this morning in person. However, unfortunately, I had to change my plans. But I couldn't leave this conference without an opportunity to address you with a couple of key messages that I wanted to share with you this morning. Let me tell you that WHO's constitution defines health as a complete state of well-being, physical, mental, and social. So there is no health without mental health. And we all have to look very carefully at all aspects of health. And this time around, we are going to be talking about mental health. You'll hear from my colleagues about various initiatives that World Health Organization has put forward along with its partners to advance mental health agenda. However, talking to you from the city where United Nations headquarters is located, I'd like to focus on some particular aspects. First of all, I'd like to remind us all that almost 800,000 adolescent and young people are losing their life every year because of various reasons, but mental health disorders, depression in particular, are playing a very important role in this. We also know that every person on this planet at one point in time may get affected in all ages by mental health disorders. 1 out of 4 of us will have mental health issues sometime in the life course. So it is relevant for all countries, for all ages, and for all people, for all of us, that is. So thank you so much for being there today in Moscow, trying to bring light to the issue of mental health, which is very often a forgotten area of health services when health planners are putting their heads together and plan for the health services. I'd like to focus on the issue of universal health coverage. Universal health coverage is about respecting everybody's human rights, and it's about not leaving anyone behind from being able to access services that they need. And yet we know that for many people in many countries, those services are unaffordable, inaccessible, and even unavailable altogether. It is a very dire situation that only, and sometimes even less than 1% of health budgets in low and middle income countries are spent on mental health services. We all know and we all agree this is not enough. And this situation must be changed so that those that are most vulnerable do have access to the services they need. For that, we as WHO advocate that mental health service packages must be included into universal health coverage planning and into benefit package that every country defines for themselves. Because without that, we are having too many people living without hope, sometimes locked into mental health institutions, not being able to enjoy life in a community and be productive and enjoy their existence. This must change. We cannot continue to advance towards the sustainable development goals, which we have planned by 2030, without addressing needs of those people. There are many people with intellectual disabilities who are never getting access to the services they need. This is relevant for all ages, and countries must do something to stop this, because this is indeed a violation of human rights. There is an issue also of huge stigma attached to mental health. I'm sure you will have major conversations about that. But yes, stigma is there, and it's everywhere, and it is affecting everybody from doing something about their mental health needs. It is preventing people from actually seeking the health services even when services are available. So we must talk about mental health. We must raise our voice. We must mobilize everyone, whoever you are, whether you are working in the governmental organization or intergovernmental organization, whether you are a journalist, a teacher, parent, whoever we all are, we must talk about mental health. We must destigmatize this, because without that, we will have a lot of people being left behind, being disadvantaged, and whose human rights will be violated. We also have to remember that people with intellectual disabilities are those that often experience bigger violence than other groups of people with disabilities of other kinds. So there is a lot of abuse which they are experiencing. There is a lot of neglect that those people are experiencing. And in the modern world, in the 21st century, we just cannot accept this as a norm. We must change this, and we must change it by decisive actions on the side of everybody. First and utmost, of course, on the side of the governments, healthcare workers, but also on the side of society, of the teachers, school, journalists, people, everybody. We have to fight this together as one. Let me also mention to you that last week there was United Nations General Assembly in New York, and we have had a high-level meeting on non-communicable diseases, which now includes also mental health. So mental health was very, very prominent issue during the last week's gathering of the heads of states. So we do what we can to increase political advocacy to make sure that mental health is not forgotten. But this is not enough. We need an action at a country level, in every country, in every community, in every city, in every planning unit, everywhere. And we need to use also a lot of preventive approaches to make sure that less people experience mental health disorders than they do now. And if they do, they should have access to the treatments, they should have access to the consultations, they should have access to the health services everywhere. Of course, primary health care is the major area where people with mental health disorders can receive lots of services. But we need to invest in education. Your Congress is about education and linking mental health to education. Well, we are lacking healthcare workers, including mental health workers everywhere in the world. So we need to invest in educating more of them. But we also need to invest in education about mental health and about actions to be taken to prevent and to support people with those disorders everywhere, in schools, at universities, in the communities, in the societies, in the workplace, everywhere. So these two strategies together can make a difference. And it is our moral duty and ethical necessity to do what we can do to achieve that. Next year, United Nations General Assembly will hold a meeting, a high-level meeting on universal health coverage. We must strongly advocate that mental health coverage with essential services is properly addressed. You will be surprised, but this is a fact, that almost half of the world's population today does not have full access even to essential health services. We must make sure that mental health services are properly included in the benefit packages that governments are designing. There are many ways, there are many mechanisms, but we can't see that people fall into the poverty because they have to pay for their healthcare costs. This is not fair on anybody, and we know that many people suffer from that. Let me also mention that health, including mental health, is not just an outcome of development, but it's also a driver. It's also a precondition for development. So if we want to see prosperous, sustainable, fair societies, we must invest in health of the people, and mental health is and should be a very prominent part of this. It is my pleasure again to welcome you and to wish you a very successful conference. We will be looking for the outcomes of this event at WHO to see how we can best support implementation of the decisions that you will be taking and how we can best support you with the evidence, science, and advocacy that we can bring forward in support to your actions. I wish you once again great success. Thank you for your attention and best regards.